In the last dozen videos or so, we've tackled some pretty complicated topics. In this video, we're going to take a quick pause and review everything that we've covered so far. Now I've got a summary diagram that's going to summarize exactly what happens when you start up a Node program on your local computer. So everything starts off up here at the top when you run the command node index.js, or whatever file you might be running. When you run that command, Node immediately executes and processes all the code inside of that file. Now, one thing you might be curious about during this phase as well is require statements that you have inside that file. The instant you boot up Node, all the code inside that file and any required files as well are all executed. So if your index.js file has some require statements, those are instantly required in and executed as well. Node then enters our event loop. The event loop has one overarching big question. It says, do we still have any work to do? Do we have any timers? Do we have any operating system tasks for doing networking or similar tasks? Or do we have anything still running inside of our thread pool? If we don't, then our program instantly exits and there's nothing else for us to do. But if we do still have some amount of work to do, then we go through a series of a couple of different steps. We first check to see if there are any set timeouts or set intervals that need to be executed. Next, we check to see if any callbacks are ready to be called, tied to anything related to operating system tasks like networking or anything related to our thread pool. And this is probably the vast majority of code that you and I write inside of Node applications. Next, the event loop just pauses and sits around waiting for stuff to happen. So it waits for some task to complete, or it waits for some timer to come up, or whatever else it might be waiting for. After that, we then run any set immediate functions that have been defined inside of our code. And then finally, we handle any close events, which allow us to do some amount of cleanup inside of our application. And then of course, the last thing is to go back up to the top and repeat the entire process all over again. Remember that we refer to one execution of the event loop as a tick. So you'll see that terminology quite frequently in a lot of Node documentation. All right, so that's a quick review, but we still have a lot of topics I want to now relate to you, mostly talking about performance of our application. So we now have a really good idea of the internals of Node.js and what's really happening when we make use of the Node standard library. So now we can get to leverage all this knowledge and figure out how we can start writing some really performant code inside of our applications. So quick break, and we'll dive into that in the next video.